Today was quite the day. Uh, it is late at night. Technically, it's Sunday morning, 1:31 a.m. I just went to the Kansas City, Missouri temple, went to the temple lot, went to the Liberty Jail because we had some tornado warnings earlier today. And I wanted to check those sites because, based on what was being reported, it seems like there were some tornadoes that were close to those locations. And there is one that's confirmed to have, I guess, hit or at least come close to Liberty. It may have hit the Liberty Jail. I got pictures I'll show you at the end of this video. I'm going to tell you how my day went. We're going to go in chronological order. So, as you know, I moved to Independence last year. Never expected to do that. Moved from Kansas. We had lived in Kansas for 5 years near Wichita. Before that, Arizona. Before that, Texas. And then Arizona, originally from Utah. It's wild for me to live here. And I've had so many experiences, including what happened today. So this is the Auditorium. This is Community of Christ's Conference Center. And I really like it. I think it's a beautiful building. I have really enjoyed taking pictures of it, including on this night when it was foggy and the clouds were low. It looked pretty amazing that night. And we've talked a lot about this building in the temple lot, in the Community of Christ temple and such, because we know that prophecy is going to somehow play out. At some point, the city of Zion, the New Jerusalem, will be built. There's going to be a 24 temple complex in this area. I don't know how it's going to happen, but we've had our eye on this, and we've been watching Community of Christ. And just right off the bat, I always have to say, just in case there's new people watching, I'm not rooting for the downfall of Community of Christ or have any ill wishes toward them. I just want to see prophecy fulfilled. I don't even exactly know how it's supposed to or exactly what it's going to look like, but it may involve these buildings, from what I can tell. They are lovely people. I have met a number of them. They are nice. I haven't had any bad interactions. When I watch their stuff, I really think that they're trying to do good in the world. So this is not against them, but I am here and I'm observing things. And before today, it's interesting. I have my other channel called Explore Church Sites, and I've done video tours, not just of historic church sites of our church, but also looking at these other churches that are part of the that have branched off from us, that have their roots in Joseph Smith and the Restoration. This is a video that I took of the Auditorium earlier this year. It's interesting because this year, I think it was in February, I saw this on Facebook. Their historical society put out a thing talking about the fact that this is the centennial of the groundbreaking for the Auditorium this year, 2026. And I thought that was really interesting, especially with how much we've talked about it lately. I still haven't watched this video. I plan on doing that because I'm really interested in the history of it. But they put together this video on YouTube. Now, take a look at their sign right here. Community of Christ, the Auditorium. I can't see what it says under that because I didn't get the right angle, but visitors welcome. So today, my son went to a primary activity at church and we were running errands and stuff. And once all that was done, picked him up. It was time to go home. And I usually like to take the scenic route. I like to go drive past the temple lot, just feel the spirit of that place and see if there's anything new. Wasn't expecting anything. We almost didn't take this route today, but we did. And what I noticed was this a new sign for the auditorium. It's crisp and clean and simple. You have the dome on top and then just the auditorium. But the name Community of Christ is not on it. I don't know if that's significant or not, but don't worry. I'm going to explain all of it in just a little bit. But I thought that was really interesting. So again, this is what it looked like before. Community of Christ, the auditorium. The sign was a little bit in disrepair. And, I guess that wasn't a problem because they were planning on doing this, getting a new sign. And so I went over to the other side where they have a matching sign, and there it is, the auditorium. There's no Community of Christ on it. I'm not looking at this in isolation. I'll explain a little bit later on. If you've been watching my channel, you've watched my other videos, you understand why I'm thinking along these lines, that they may potentially sell this to the church. We're going to talk about their budget. We've already seen them sell the Kirtland Temple, mostly because they can't afford it anymore. They don't do tithing the same way that we do. And the number of tithe payers in their church is going down. We did a graph one time. It's not looking good. And these buildings, what they refer to as the temple complex, the temple, headquarters building, the auditorium, as well as the stone church, those three together is my understanding. It's called the temple complex. It's expensive for a few different reasons. So, I look at this and I'm like, are they potentially going to sell this? And would it be a similar deal as it was with the Kirtland Temple? I have to go back. I forgot to do that in preparation for this video, but from what I recall, the agreement is that like the status quo of the Kirtland Temple is going to remain for a set number of years. Like say it's like 10 years, 15 years, something like that. Where they're still able to meet in the Kirtland Temple and have their meetings and so forth. I don't know what happens after that point, but I wonder if the same thing could happen with the auditorium. So maybe during a transition period, it would just simply be known as the auditorium, possibly under the ownership of the church. They would continue to use it for world conferences. That's their version of general conference, and for other meetings. And, I don't know what else they do with it. But it's interesting. The auditorium. So look, I went around the building and looked at the other distinctive emblems and signs that they have. You have these emblems that are like part of the building. I don't think that you can really, it doesn't just come off easily. You'd have to use some tools to get that off there if you were going to change it. So you have the original emblem for the RLDS, the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, over near like kind of like a back entrance area. You have this large emblem. This is their main thing, the child, the lion, and the lamb, which brings millennial imagery to your mind, makes you think of Isaiah, peace. I actually really like these. I'm a sucker for emblems, insignias, logos, symbols, and I really like this piece just because it's big. It's like a big coin. But that's still on there. They haven't taken that off. So I'm just saying what I'm observing with their sign may not mean anything. They may just be updating the building and they want a new look. I don't know. So this is still up. Here's some other signs. It's a little faded right here. That could probably be updated, but that has what looks like the emblem of the church. Like it looks like a lion. Here's another sign for parking. and it's faded as well. That could probably be updated, but they haven't changed that. So it may not be anything, but what stands out to me is the fact that this new sign doesn't have their church's name on it. And I guess it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. But that's typically what they do. Here's the sign for the temple, Community of Christ. Sorry, let me move my camera up here. Community of Christ, the temple, world headquarters, visitors welcome. Right? That's just kind of a natural thing to do. Put the name of the organization on there. Later in the day, we went up to Far West, and while there, I decided to take a picture of their sign for the Far West congregation, and it has Community of Christ right there. You have this other group. They're a break off from Community of Christ. They're of the RLDS tradition. And they have the name of their church on the building, Remnant Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I've met their prophet president, Terry W. Patience. He gave me a tour of their headquarters building. I have a video of that on my other channel called Explore Church Sites. He's a great guy. And then you look at our own church. Here's our conference center in Salt Lake City. And right here, you have the name of the church, right? Here's the Kansas City, Missouri temple. This is while my parents were here, and we got there at a great time. We had just been to Worlds of Fun, which is the theme park in Kansas City, and left a little bit early, and we got here just in time for this amazing sunset. The lighting was amazing. But here's like the thing where they put the name of the church and the temple. This is actually on the backside of the temple, but facing the street. Right? So, so when we look at this and it just says the auditorium, I don't know, it just stands out. I'm just making observations. I'm more interested in what's actually going to happen, and that will require just waiting and being patient and seeing and documenting. But I was kind of taken aback by this, right? Now, really quick, we've talked about special dates in other videos. We noticed that with the Kirtland Temple, it seems to have been coordinated in such a way that it would be purchased in the month of March, in that it would be open in time for the anniversary of the dedication of the Kirtland Temple. So the temple was purchased on March 5th, and then it was closed for 20 days, and then it was open in time for the anniversary, which is March 27th, right? 27th or the 29th? I think it's the 27th. So I did some research, and I've thought, okay, if something similar happened here in Independence, whether it's the temple lot, whether it's the auditorium, whether it's the Community of Christ temple, if that ever happened, would something similar happen? And I think so. And I think it would center around this date right here. August 3rd, 1831. That's the date that Sidney Rigdon, under the direction of Joseph Smith, dedicated the temple lot. And they had a ceremony. They placed some marker stones to mark where the temple is supposed to be built. And I think there's reason to believe that if there's special announcements, either it may be an announcement, or it may be a groundbreaking date, or it may be a dedication date. It could be any of those things. But this is a date to watch, because we've noticed, for example, this is the three monuments at Far West. They specifically dedicated this on the 3rd of August, 1968. And then we also have the Independence Visitor Center. This was built to be one of the temples of the 24 temple complex. The Lord revealed specific dimensions for those temples, and they used those dimensions to construct this building. First to be used as a visitor center, and at some time in the future, maybe not until the millennium, it'll be turned into a temple. It seems that that's the plan. But I found out recently that the groundbreaking date for the Independence Visitor Center was August 3rd. We learned that from the David O. McKay diaries on the University of Virginia's website for Mormon studies. They specifically planned it that way. So that's something to think about. Now, Community of Christ, right? It seems to me that they've been putting out a lot of really interesting messaging. Ever since they ordained their first female prophet president, Stacey D. Cram. This is her right here. I was there on the day that they had the ordination. I wasn't in the auditorium, but they had like a big screen and I watched part of it. And after they were done with that session of conference, they all came out of the auditorium. The streets were blocked off and they walked over to the temple to this area called the World Plaza and had a celebration. And I wanted to document it. I took a video of it. It's on my other channel. And they had a thing set up, like these pop-up tents where you could get in line and go, congratulate her. And so I did. And I got this picture. She seems to me like a very competent leader. It seems like she knows what she's doing. She's intelligent. And I think that she wants to see the church survive and thrive. And I think she's going to make that happen. The thing about it is, like I said, there's been some really interesting messaging that they've been putting out that I've been paying attention to. They have a YouTube channel, for one. This really got on my radar. I think it was the beginning of November. There was like a flurry of videos that they put out. And I listened to them, and there was definitely a theme that I picked up on. And the theme was, we as a church, Community of Christ, they need to be prepared for change and to take a different path. Let me just show you some examples. So, for example, I should first note that right after she was ordained, she was interviewed by Salt Lake Tribune, and they asked her, about selling the temple in the auditorium, and she said, I can't find that part. Sorry, it was a lot of preparation to put this together. I'm really tired and it's late. I'm not even wearing my typical black shirt. In a nutshell, you can pause and read this. But she said, I don't know what future presidents may do, but that's not the plan to sell the auditorium or the temple during my time as prophet president. There was like discussion at their world conference whether they would like solidify, like, no, you cannot sell these things. And in this paragraph, she explains, well, we couldn't adopt that resolution because if it goes against our scriptures and our doctrine, we can't do that. And essentially, we are able to make those decisions. Just in a nutshell, that's what she said. Well, later on, there were some messages that came out. We had this one from one of their apostles where she was like really downplaying the importance of having physical buildings, how things were different back when she was growing up in like the 80s and the 90s. We had this Christmas message or Advent message where she was talking about Mary and how Mary suddenly, she didn't know what to do. She had no roadmap, no certainty, no control when it came to like this situation that she found herself in, becoming the mother of Jesus Christ. But basically that she was able to face a holy unknown. And throughout this thing, she talks about flexibility, holding plans loosely. I think this might be one of the places where she talks about prophetic imagination and being able to pivot. So like right here, she says, their plans were ruined, but the children pivoted. You read through this and she's definitely conveying the message, like we need to be flexible. We need to be ready to face uncertainty. It may or may not have to do with their buildings. It could just have to do with how their church operates. Maybe they just want to change the structure of the church, or maybe uh, do more services online, or I don't know what. I've been trying to figure that out. But one thing that was really telling was this from the presiding evangelist, Mareva Arnaud Chong. She, let's see. I'll just read this first part. She says, I remember being on a mission trip. On the road, we got stuck in a huge traffic jam. Cars were at a complete standstill. From a distance, we could see dust, barriers, noisy machines, workers in action, and a lot of movement, a lot of noise. But for us, no way forward. Now, of course, she's not just telling a story. She's telling this to the membership of their church to apply to themselves. But for us, no way forward. Then, almost at the level of the construction site, a worker lifted a sign, Detour. And right there, just beside us, a small road opened up, narrower, less visible, almost hidden, but real. You guys, when you're physically here in Independence and in the Temple Lot area, they are very visible. These buildings are big. Their temple, their auditorium, they're big buildings. They speak to, a heritage that they have and a tradition and a presence in Independence. So she's saying a small road opened up, narrower, less visible, almost hidden, but real. And it was the road that allowed us to move on. Later, she says, the prophet Isaiah spoke to a people in exile in Babylon. Their temple was destroyed, their land lost, their habits broken. Many thought, our story is over. And that's when God speaks. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? So that's just a small taste of the kind of things that they've been saying, like over and over and over again. So it's not just about a sign that no longer has their name on it. It feels like they're being prepared for something, some big change, whether it's these buildings or not. So I'm just curious to see how it plays out. There was one other thing. Stacey D. Cram, their prophet president, she used this analogy in this message from January of this year. Imagine our church not as a single ship. So I think you could rephrase that as like, it's not just Independence, Missouri. It's not just headquarters. It's not just the United States and Canada. Imagine our church not as a single ship, but as a worldwide fleet, setting sail upon unpredictable seas. From historic ships, like Independence, Missouri, to nimble boats. We launch from different ports facing unique currents. And then she goes on. I just want to share one more and then we'll move on. This is their most recent message. Well, it's not so much a message, but I guess it kind of is, that they put out. Recently, they started doing a podcast with their first presidency. This is their first presidency, where the stated goal is to basically be like more transparent and also invite conversation and questions and suggestions of how the church feels that it should proceed forward with different issues. Lots of different issues. This is episode 5. They just started it like, I think last month, and I've watched almost every one. One thing that's interesting before I go into the quote that I want to read, you see this map here behind, his name is Bunda. He's one of the counselors. So these are her 2 counselors. And Bunda has this map behind him. I don't know what these small sticky pieces of paper are behind him, but I assume it has something to do with Community of Christ locations across seas. And you see there's a bunch of them over here. There's some in Africa, there's one in India, maybe the Middle East, I'm not sure, and then some in Europe. And then here's one over here in the Pacific. But there's only a couple, I think, in the United States. I can't see the rest of the map. I looked through the video to see if I could see the rest of the map, but he doesn't move his head very much. But I don't know. Maybe these are just like his areas of responsibility, or maybe it represents their whole church, like the main locations for their church. But I think they're wanting to pivot to focus more on these other um, whatever you call them. I can't remember if they call them like mission fields or like congregations. But I feel like this is could be telling. But in this episode, this is the most recent one at the time that I'm making this video. She up here is speaking. Her name is Janae C. Grover, counselor to the president. And this is the most recent statement that I feel is potentially significant. They in this episode they introduced this idea of like this analogy that the church is like a farm, and how you have different locations. So like with real farming, there's certain areas where you grow certain crops and where you don't grow certain crops. So, I lived in Arizona for a number of years, and Arizona is big on like cotton and citrus because of the climate. I lived in Kansas for 5 years, and Kansas is big on wheat. And so they're using this as an analogy that you have different fields, different locations throughout the world, and you do things differently according to the circumstances of that field. Um, but then there's this really interesting part where she seems to be referring to, I don't know if she's referring to just the United States as a whole, or if she's talking about Missouri and independence, but let's think about independence. She says, "So we must remain agile and faithful in an ever changing world." And there's a concept also about letting fields rest. And that's a really important practice, because if you keep working the ground, you will work it out. And so there are practices in farming. And again, I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but rather there's an important practice of rotating the fields and letting a field rest so that it can recover, the nutrients. And there are particular practices to help make that happen. And that's part of our agility. Sometimes they refer to it as prophetic agility, essentially the ability to be flexible in change when revelation comes, because they believe in ongoing, continuing revelation, similar to us. And that's part of our agility, is to not just keep focusing something where we have always focused. So again, I don't know if she's referring to just like the United States, I was going to say my hometown, Murray, Independence, maybe the United States and Canada. I don't know. But not just keep focusing something where we have always focused, because we've always done that to be agile and responsive in letting things rest, and to make sure that we are focusing our resources and our priorities where the Spirit is leading and where we can be more productive. So it's just, you take it all together, you read these statements in full, there's a definite pattern. You see them sell the Kirtland Temple back in 2024, not just the Kirtland Temple, but also the Nauvoo properties, like really important ones, the Smith family homestead, the Mansion House, I think the Nauvoo house as well, the red brick store where the first endowments were performed. Really significant locations. They're not so attached anymore to their history or these like original beliefs, like the Book of Mormon, um, Doctrine and Covenants. I never hear them reference the Book of Mormon, for example. at least so far out of all the things that I've watched. Sometimes they'll refer to Doctrine and Covenants, but it's the sections that they wrote after splitting from our church. I don't think I've heard them uh, cite like earlier sections of the Doctrine and Covenants. So it's really interesting. Um, they're moving further and further away from those original beliefs, and so it's like, why would you care to stay in independence or have like a big presence here? They clearly they want to become a global church and do things throughout the world, and it's not so much anymore about purchasing the temple lot. I know that there was a time when they, like us, they were interested in fulfilling that prophecy and building that temple. I think it was their prophet president named Frederick M. Smith. I think he was one that was very serious about trying to actually build the city of Zion. Um, but they have changed a lot since that time. So I don't think that independence means the same thing to them prophetically as it once did. And they're more focusing on just their congregations throughout the world. Um, here's their budget for 2026. We've looked at this before. And, you have the breakdown of their different sources of revenue and their expenses. And just for example, here you have this section right here. The total expenses are 774,000. Down here, 339. A little bit over $500,000 for communications. It's 1 million. I'm just going through this really quick. Herald House, 240,000. But then you get to the temple complex, and it's almost 3 million. So relative to their other expenses, this is a monster of a expense. Here at this part, I think these are the different ways that they fund these facilities, but they're just super expensive. And to my surprise, I guess the biggest expense is property insurance at $1.2 million. That's crazy. But you have these other things too: security, facilities, improvement, and modernization, and such. But it's expensive, and so if they're wanting to become more nimble, if they're wanting to spread out and let this field rest, the field of independence in Missouri, then maybe it's not worth it for them to hold on to these buildings. Because Stacey D. Cram, she has this thing about Onward and fixing problems. And I think she's the one that's introduced the idea of prophetic imagination, which in a nutshell seems to mean like, what can we really become and where does God really want us to go? And just the whole, like, the future for them seems very flexible and full of different possibilities. All right, so I want to move on from that. So that's just a nutshell of why I think that this could actually mean something, but I'm content with just waiting and seeing. It's just unusual. They don't have their name on the sign anymore. We'll see if that actually means something or not. Okay, now, so that was like the first part of my day, was seeing this. And it was a Saturday, because now it's Sunday, but it's Saturday, and I was just in a good mood in general. We decided to like continue our drive, drop the kids off, drive to Far West, see if there's been any updates there. And there has been. They've do I have the picture up? Yeah. At Far West, they've, like, I already reported on the fact that they've redone the entrance. Now it's wheelchair accessible. They've put in some new sidewalks. And then the most recent thing are these new picnic tables. But the entrance isn't all the way done. So I wanted to drive up there to see if they had completed that, which they still haven't. So we drove up there. And as we were driving, My friend Mindy with Temples of Jesus channel, because I had texted her in our group these things, and she's like, hey, take a look at this. So on the same day that I noticed the change with the sign, she sent me this church news article. To me, this is not coincidence. Why Elder Jeremiah J. Morgan can say, I strive to be a relentless disciple of Jesus Christ. New General Authority 70, Elder Morgan from Liberty, Missouri, encourages all to speak up for faith and be of good cheer. But you know what's so interesting about him to me? I have quotes from him on my spreadsheets. Well, at least I have one. He used to be RLDS, or what is now Community of Christ. He is now a General Authority 70. Let me show you some of the things that are said in this article. I've done I think a couple videos about him and things that he said before, but he comes up again on the day when I see that with the sign of Community of Christ. Okay. Elder Jeremiah M. Morgan has been working as the Chief Deputy Attorney General for the state of Missouri when the call was extended to be a General Authority 70 for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And then it kind of goes into that story. He talks about the fact that he was sustained as a oh my gosh, that he was sustained as a General Authority 70 in this last General Conference. Before that, he was in Area 70. And then it goes into his story at this part. And they have something really interesting to say about this area and its future. Elder Morgan was born in Ketterburg, Ohio, and was a baby when his father left the family. His mother, raising the 5 children by herself, moved to Lamoni, Iowa, in order to attend Graceland University. I should have highlighted Lamoni. I didn't know that Lamoni, Iowa existed. And yes, it is named Lamoni after King Lamoni in the Book of Mormon. My understanding is that once Joseph Smith III came of age, I think this is where he became prophet president. I think this is where church headquarters was once he was prophet president, but it was their church headquarters before moving to independence. So Lamoni, Iowa is just off of I-35, which goes through Kansas City and up to Iowa. And it's on the border of Iowa and Missouri on the Iowa side. It's a great place to visit. They have an amazing Amish store there with like country food and crafts and decorations and stuff, souvenirs. In Graceland University is Community of Christ University. It's like their BYU. Elder Morgan's middle name is Joseph, after the prophet Joseph Smith, which was important to his mother. Which again, so far, since I've started really paying attention to them, I have not heard them talk about Joseph Smith at all. It doesn't seem to have any significance to them. It does to the break-off restoration branches. So they had a schism, like a really big schism back in the 80s. And the ones that still hold on to those beliefs of like Joseph Smith really being a prophet and the Book of Mormon being actual scripture and historically accurate and stuff like that. It's the restoration branches that have held on to those beliefs, but Community of Christ has like really distanced itself. Okay, his great-great-great-grandparents, Francis and Mary Ann Case, were baptized into the church in 1831 in Lexington, Missouri, by Oliver Cowdery. What's so interesting is at the time that Mindy texted us this article, we were now driving home from Far West. We had been there to, see if there were any updates. Like I said, the new picnic tables have been set up and they're very nice. I can't wait to use them. But as we were driving home on Missouri 13, That's the way that we like to take to get back to independence. We were passing Lexington, Missouri, the one that's mentioned in this article that we just read. Welcome to Lexington, established 1822. There's actually a historic site there. After the Saints were driven out of Missouri, and as you had converts that were making their way to Utah, so I think this was in the 1850s. There were some of them that were on a steamboat, and the steamboat Saluda, and it had an accident. There was like this large explosion, and it killed many of the passengers. And the people in Lexington were kind and really took care of the victims of that disaster. And so there's a historical marker there. But anyway, we were passing Lexington, Missouri as we were reading this article. So his ancestors joined the church in 1831, which was, the beginning of the Missouri period, in Lexington, Missouri, by Oliver Cowdery. They went with the church to Independence in far west Missouri and Nauvoo, Illinois, but they did not go west with Brigham Young and the rest of the saints. Ultimately, they joined the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, now known as the Community of Christ, and generations of the family followed as members of that church. When Elder Morgan was 1, his mother, Susan Jane Case Morgan, moved the family to Independence, Missouri, the headquarters of the Community of Christ. During this time, each morning in their small mobile home, his mother read the Book of Mormon out loud to him while he got ready for school. Which, from what I've seen, I don't mean to keep, bringing it up, but I don't think they do this anymore. I highly doubt. Now, you can correct me if you're wrong. If you're a member of Community of Christ, please let me know. Do you read the Book of Mormon regularly? Do you make sure that your children read the Book of Mormon? I don't know, but I think this is something from times past. Continuing. While he didn't remember much from what she read to him, quote, "I remember that she did. That was the most important part, and her love of the Book of Mormon sunk deep into my heart." Meanwhile, significant changes were made at a world conference of the church in 1984. Yes, that was a year of destiny for Community of Christ. I have a spreadsheet called Timeline Community of Christ. And what happened was the prophet president at the time, Wallace B. Smith, introduced Doctrine and Covenants 156, which allows for women to be ordained to the priesthood. This was a big problem for many people, and this is what resulted in that big schism that produced what we now know as the Restoration branches, which are a loose federation of autonomous branches that I guess they somewhat associate with each other. And I've heard that there's different factions, but it's the aftermath of what happened in 1984. So that was a pivotal moment in their church. All right, going back. So meanwhile, significant changes were made at a world conference of the church in 1984, which greatly affected his family. Yeah, in the whole church. The following summer, when he was 14, they went on a family trip to upstate New York. Standing in the sacred grove, he felt a question stirring in his heart. Where is the true church of Jesus Christ? High school friends who were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints shared the gospel with him, and he studied and prayed to find the truth. This is something that we should all do. And if you're in Community of Christ or any other Restoration church, please make sure to do this if you haven't already. But I think you have to think. You have to stop and question and wonder, why do we not use the Book of Mormon as much anymore? Or why don't we emphasize the importance of the Restoration? What even is the Restoration? What's the significance of Joseph Smith? Why do we have apostles? What does an apostle do? Or a 70? Because, they have these same priesthood offices, but what are they for? Why is it significant? Okay, events followed that Events followed that, he said, can only be described as miraculous. Although he had been converted to the gospel of Jesus Christ, his mother asked him to wait until he turned 18 to be baptized, and he honored that request. Okay. Reflecting on family history, Sister Morgan noted that Elder Morgan's great-great-great-grandparents had received the endowment in the Nauvoo Temple in 1846. This is something that Community of Christ does not do. In fact, I don't believe any of the splinter groups do. There was one called the Church of Jesus Christ, led by Alpheus Cutler. It's a church that's gone extinct, but they still have like a chapel. I don't know who owns it or who maintains it, but it's not too far from the temple lot. They continue the endowment, but the temple lot church, they don't do it. You know, none of the RLDS churches do it. But Elder Morgan's great-great-great-grandparents, they received their endowments in the Nauvoo Temple. Okay, quote, and this is really good. His conversion wasn't a mere coincidence. It was the fulfillment of promises made long ago. It's covenants. Covenants draw you back, she said. They are generational and they are eternal. You guys, I think just like the Jews, in the way that we look at the Jews, they're still a chosen people. They still have a special heritage. And I feel the same way, frankly, about these churches that are around here. They don't believe a lot of what we believe, but there's a lot that we do have in common. And they do have this ancestry. And I think that she's right. I think it's in them. So, you know, if you're watching this, if you're from one of these groups, I would encourage you to get in contact with our missionaries. I'll help you do it. Just send me an email. I'll be there at your baptism if you decide to join the church. But think back to those amazing days in Nauvoo and all that the Lord revealed and just how far this work has progressed. This is now a church. This year, we're going to be hitting 18 million members of the church. I can't remember exactly how many temples that we have, but it's over 300 that have been announced or under construction or already in operation. The church is truly spreading throughout the entire world. Just like the prophecy of Daniel, where there was the stone that was rolling down the mountain and it got bigger and bigger, and then it smashed into the statue in King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. That's what's going on. The kingdom of God is here on the earth, and it's growing with power. And we're preparing for the second coming of Jesus Christ. And so I think that you have a part to play in that. And I think that you can embrace these covenants and go to the temple and receive your endowment. Okay, later on, meeting and marriage. Sister Morgan grew up in Independence, Missouri, and met Elder Morgan while attending the Independence YSA branch one summer about a year after he got home from his mission. She was home from her freshman year at Brigham Young University, and he was attending the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg, Missouri. And there they are wearing Royals jerseys. I got my Royals baseball at the game that I went to. Was it last month or the month before? I'm starting to love this area. I love Kansas City, and I love Independence, and I love Missouri. Okay, they wrote letters to each other when they returned to college and were married the next December in the Dallas, Texas temple. Because I guess at that time, well, of course, at that time, the Kansas City, Missouri temple was not yet dedicated. They raised their 5 children in the Liberty, Missouri area. The youngest is now 21, and the oldest 3 are married with 8 children between them. Now, this is where we start like really talking about liberty, and that's one of the strange aspects of today for me. Right before recording this video, we just got home from doing a drive to all these different places to see if there had been damage to any of these sites. One of the places that we went to was Liberty, and that's it seems that that's the place that was affected the most today, where there was a confirmed tornado. I don't know if it was in Liberty itself. If it was like in the eastern part of Liberty. There was a lot of wind damage in general because there were really strong winds up to, I think they said on the Missouri side, up to 79 miles per hour. But we'll get to that in just a minute. But it's just so crazy how, of all days, when all this is happening, noticing this new sign, Mindy sending me this article that we're reading right now about someone who was RLDS. And then as we're driving home and reading this article, passing Lexington, Missouri, which is where his great grandparents joined the church. And then him having lived in Liberty and having raised his children there. And not only that, look, when Elder Morgan began serving as stake president of the, so look, he was the stake president of the Liberty, Missouri stake in 2009. So on the day that we're covering this, we have this tornado that hit Liberty. I'm so sorry. This video is rough. Look, it is now 2:22 in the morning. It's now 2:22 in the morning. The stake boundaries were around 3 hours driving from one end to the other. Now, 3 more stakes have been formed from that stake. The far west, Grand River, which is the Adirondack stake. That's where Adirondack is. Grand River is the river that runs through there. And Shoal Creek, Missouri stakes. Shoal Creek is the creek that goes through Hans Mill. So it's basically the far west stake, the Adirondack stake, and the Hans Mill stake is one way that you can think about it. It's a miracle, Sister Morgan said. Missouri is an incredible place to be. I'm not sure there's anyone who loves Missouri more than Jeremiah and Rebecca Morgan. Okay, they have a longer history here, so I guess that's true. But I'm going to catch up. Okay, I'm going to catch up. I already like it quite a bit. I might give you a run for your money. Living close to many church historic sites, Sister Morgan knows, quote, now listen to this quote. So many beautiful things happened there, and so many beautiful things will happen there. Because we know what's going to happen. We know that there's going to be that meeting. If it hasn't already started and it's broken up into sessions, there's going to be that meeting at Adirondack where Christ is going to appear, his first appearance of the second coming, the first of his 4 appearances. We know that there is going to be the New Jerusalem someday. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't think it has to be completed with streets and infrastructure before the second coming. I tend to think that's going to happen in the millennium. But at some point, that will be one of the 2 world headquarters. The one here in Jackson County, Missouri, and then the other one being the Old Jerusalem. So many beautiful things will happen there. The Lord is preparing a place and a people. And I believe that's true. I don't think everyone's supposed to come here because Zion has spread across the entire world. We have stakes all across the world, and that's how it's supposed to be. But this is a special place, and some feel called to be here. It was never my intention to live here. We were driven out of Utah and Arizona and the entire Western United States because of home prices. We wanted to have a homestead, and so we moved to Kansas where we could actually afford one. And then after starting this YouTube channel, I couldn't homestead anymore. And we needed a bigger house. And so we decided to move to the city. And we're like, oh, might as well just move to Kansas City or somewhere around there. And there just happened to be a great place to rent in Independence. And then we were there for about a year. The owners decided to sell the house. And so we bought a house in Independence. And so now I am permanently here. I own land in Independence. It's really neat. But I think that the Lord preparing a place and a people, I think that does include the people that already live here, that have been here longer than we have. You have groups that came here, groups that are part of the restoration family of churches. They got here first, and I think that they have an important place, important part to play as well as they embrace the gospel and join the church. Some of the most, let me tell you something. So when I should just pull it up. Sorry, I'm like starting to get like tired and loopy. Let me look up my Explorer Church sites winter quarters. Like I said, I've met a number of people who are RLDS or who are Community of Christ, but others that have joined our church. And one of them, this was something that I swear this was not coincidence. There's one day similar to this where I didn't get any sleep that night for some reason. Was up all night, and we just felt like, you know what? Winter quarters is not very far away. Let's just go up to Omaha and go to winter quarters. And we went. I brought my GoPro. I was doing a video for my Explore Church Sites channel. And as I was walking up to the front of the Winter Quarters Nebraska temple, there was somebody that recognized me. I didn't recognize her at first, but she recognized me. Her name is Lori Hast. Her house was damaged by a tornado. She lives in like Council Bluffs or near there. She's one of my viewers, and I help support her GoFundMe. And she was able to get everything taken care of, and she's now living in that house again. And it was a success. But out of all people for me to run into on that random day, and I could have easily missed her if I had been just like, even just like 30 seconds too late. She was walking in with some other women to go do ceilings. But I ran into her, and this is where I found out that she was RLDS, and she gained a testimony. She felt the Spirit, and I think she said that her family was upset at first. Maybe they still are. I don't know. But she ended up joining the church, and now she's received her endowments, and it's amazing. She's happy, and she's an amazing member of my audience. So, where was I? Some of the most powerful revelations in Scripture came to Joseph Smith while in the Liberty Jail. And then it references D&C 123. I'm just going to skip down. Right now, the church has the most members, the most missionaries, the most temples, with more joining, serving, and being built every year, he said. The covenants and blessings of the gospel are reaching more places than ever reached in history. That's true. This is a record-breaking time. It is accelerating. We are preparing for the second coming. It is going to happen, and Christ is literally going to come. All right, so we read through this article while we were in the car, past Lexington, Missouri, after going to far west. I mentioned that we've heard from Elder Morgan and Sister Morgan before. Let me just do a quick recap of what they said. This is when he was in Area 70, and I think he was in the area presidency, and he did like this outgoing message as he was ending his service. This was July 23rd, 2025. He wanted to talk about his time serving in that capacity. And he talks a lot about the second coming. He talked about how President Nelson asked us, "Do you see the majesty of this moment?" He talked about remarkable growth. Sister Morgan quoted President Nelson when he said that between now and when Jesus Christ returns again, we would see some of the greatest manifestations of God's power, and we are seeing that here in our area. And then Elder Morgan says, over the last few weeks, 3 new stakes have been created in the Kansas City area. In addition to that, 8 new stake presidencies have been called just within the last few months. That's remarkable growth. He goes on to say that the church has nine different metrics to measure growth, in that our area has hit all of those. And he gives some specific numbers, but there are significant increases. And then I'm going to read this last part. No, don't move that. This last paragraph. You and I can be part of that spiritual momentum. This is the great work of the kingdom here in this area, and we can all be part of it. I testify to you, as President Nelson has said, the best is yet to come. And President Nelson explained in that talk that the best is yet to come because the Savior is coming again, literally. Elder Morgan. And so it is for each of us, and for this area in particular. This is very similar to what Sister Morgan said in this article when she said, in reference to Missouri, the Lord is preparing a place and a people. All right. So after that, we drove around a little bit more, came home. There were a few tornado warnings that you can see right here. So, excuse me. We had, I think this was the same one. I think they extended it. It's not really two. But we had one that was over here, not too far from the Kansas City Temple, which is right here. And here's that Northland, the plaza of the Northland area that the church owns, that now it's going to develop, this like triangular piece of land. So I don't think that we have the exact track of the tornado, because I think it takes time for them to figure that out. But it's possible that there was a tornado close to the Kansas City Temple. They were talking about the fact that it happened close to Worlds of Fun, which is the theme park, which is just right here, just south of the temple. So that's pretty interesting, and I'm going to be following up on that. And then here you have Liberty right here. And we went up there and I took pictures, and I went to the Liberty jail, and there were some down branches. Yeah, this one, and there were a couple other ones that didn't really make for good pictures. This could have just been from just regular wind damage, because like I said, wind gusts got up to 79 miles an hour, so it may have just been that. But as we were driving through Liberty, it felt like there was like a definite path to this destruction. Some of it was light, like this. Some of it was a little bit more severe. You see that these branches have been cut by a chainsaw. That's probably because like it was like in the road, and they probably hurried and cut it up to get it out of the road or whatever. The other side of it looked more dramatic coming from the other way. But we saw a number of trees that were downed and larger branches, and there were leaves and stuff all over the place on the roads. The power was out. All the houses were dark. I mean, not all of them, but like a good part of the area around historic downtown Liberty. So I'll be really interested to see, once we have the data, if the tornado did touch down in Liberty, or if this was just wind damage. If it did touch down in Liberty, I'll be interested to see if it started at the Liberty Jail, or even just touched the Liberty Jail. We've referred to this spreadsheet before. This is Missouri tornadoes since 1950. And here's Liberty. And so, where is it here? Okay, where's Leonard Street? Right here. Here's Leonard Street. Here's the public square. Here's the Liberty Jail right here. Okay, this is the Liberty Jail. So this isn't going to be updated yet. It takes time, but the closest tornadoes were in 1979, 1957. Here's one, 2015. So that's like the most recent close one. So I'll just be interested to see. I'll analyze that more, figure out if today is significant in church history or anything like that. But either way, it is still interesting that happened on the day when all this other stuff was happening. The article noticing the new sign for me, it was significant and interesting. And then there may have been one in Independence, and where is it? They were looking at this area, Nolan Road, just a little bit south of the Temple lot, or like kind of like southeast. Here's the Temple lot right here. Okay, right here. This is the Temple lot. Here's the Auditorium. Here's the Temple. Nolan Road is one of the main roads here. And on Tornado HQ, they had a thing right here that this is probably where a tornado started, if there was one. If that's true, then that will be the closest tornado to the Temple lot since 1950, which I think is significant. Up until this point, the closest tornado to the Temple lot was the one that happened last year on June 3rd. It happened during Community of Christ World Conference. They were in session in the auditorium. And so that the sirens were going off while they were doing that. Me and Jenica were in downtown Independence, and we went to the Independence Visitor Center to take cover because it happened really quick. And this is the one that, as it crossed Truman Road over here, there's a business called Temple Engineering that it hit. And they don't construct temples, but the name is Temple Engineering. And I felt like it's potentially a sign, but we'll see. But it happened during this conference where they ordained their first female prophet president. And maybe it's a sign of things to come, that things are changing in this area. And maybe we'll see these temples built sooner than later. We'll just have to see. Oh yeah, one other thing, we'll just end with this. There's a number of news stories talking about this. I just picked this one. Tornado sirens during Scotland World Cup clash as Kansas battered by twin twisters. So, yeah, I'm not like a huge soccer fan. I don't really care, but there's some of the matches of the World Cup that are taking place in Kansas City. And so, it was interrupted by these tornado warnings and the sirens. So that's unfortunate. Anyway, I can go to bed now as soon as I edit this and upload it and whatever. It's exciting because they're doing some boundary changes in our stake, and my ward is one of the ones that are affected. So I'll be interested to see how it's affected. It's always fun for things to change. I've only been in this ward for a few months, so it's already it's pretty new, but it's still fun just whenever there's change. So I'm looking forward to that. All right. Well, yeah, I'm going to publish this, I guess, today, Sunday. So I hope you have a good rest of your Sabbath. If there's any updates, I'll bring them to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts and your opinions and your insights. Leave them in the comments, or you can feel free to send me an email. And I'll talk to you guys later.